You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest today, Mr. Dusty Baker of Cross Timbers Bison. Dusty, thanks so much for making the trip down here.
Thanks, man. Pumped.
Yeah, excited to get into it. Had a lot of fun scrolling through your Instagram page, sharing a lot of your videos. Just Big Joe and all the other kind of amazing bison that you have on the property, which we're going to talk about today. But before we get into talking about bison, the whole business, and kind of the explosion that you've had over social media probably the last 24 months, and YouTube too, your YouTube channel's really good. Tell me about you. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Sulphur, where we currently live. Graduated from high school there in 2004. Yeah. And I don't know, lived the country life, grew up in the country doing hunting, fishing, being a country boy, I guess, and got into the sports, played football, and we all had some really good success there, and was in FFA, showed sheep, kind of did all of that, and played basketball too as well, and then some track here and there, and just stayed busy, you're just country boy, I guess. I don't know.
Never wanted to get an office job then?
No, not really. I didn't know. I always had this vision of I loved animals, and I always wanted to, kind of, when you're a young kid, you're like, you want to be a zookeeper and stuff. And then when you get older, you're like, okay, there's some other cooler things out there to do. And so, I had my senior year in high school, I had I was pursuing to go to Oklahoma State to get a wildlife ecology degree. I had that. That's what I wanted to do. There was nothing else.
Yeah.
So, but when I went there, I never changed my major, which is kind of rare for lots of college kids.
Yeah.
But no, anyways, I can keep going if you want me to keep running with it.
Yeah, keep running with it.
Because I will. You have to stop me.
No, you're good. We can edit stuff. This is great. You're doing good.
No, so I can kind of go back to the bison whenever we start talking about that, but just life in general. I wanted to go to Oklahoma State, and I went my first semester to East Central, and and kind of was stepping into college, I guess, and it wasn't my favorite thing I wanted to do, and I figured out real quick with some of my buddies and stuff, and that vision I had of going to Stillwater, it was in the back of my mind, but it took me about 2 months. I'm like, this is not what I like, driving back and forth from Sulphur to Ada, and so within, I think, 2 or 3 months, I put a deposit down on a dorm room in Oklahoma State, and I headed to Stillwater in, I guess, the beginning of 2005 to start the spring semester. Anyways, went to Stilly, and like I said, I always had pursued that major, wildlife ecology, wanted to kind of do the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Park Service, step into those positions. And in the meantime, in 2006, I started working for the Oklahoma State football team and became a student equipment manager. And so that honestly kind of my experience and just, I mean, I had so much experience. I mean, I basically lived the dream of a player without playing, you know.
Or having to work out.
Yeah, I mean, it was what an experience, and I got paid to do it. It wasn't much. I'm pretty sure his minimum wage was like $6.25.
Yeah.
But man, I was going to school and I got involved with the team, and I mean, it was awesome. And so I did that for about 2.5 years, and my last semester, last year working for the football team, I was like, man, I really love this relationship between the coaches and the players and the community. And of course, in Stillwater, that town is built, around that place. So I just loved it. And anyways, I graduated in fall of 2008. Well, at the same time that happened was the economy crash. And so, growing up, or kind of at the high school age, all these older men that were working in the Park Service were supposed to be retiring. And there were going to be hundreds of jobs across the country. And I didn't mind moving at the time. Anyways, well, that didn't happen with the economy crash. And so there were no government jobs whatsoever. So I was like, okay, God's trying to tell me to do something here. I don't know if this is what I should be doing. I'm like, I don't know. So I jumped into, hey, you know what? I kind of want to coach and teach. And so I actually, from a previous marriage I was in, when moved to Texas, got married, bought a house, and I started substitute teaching. And from there, I kind of got my foot in the door, and I ended up in Plano. Is where I did, working at Plano East Side. And a guy from Oklahoma actually was a principal, and he hired me. I think it's said it on that resume. It helped him a little bit hire me because I was never taught before anything. And of course, I started coaching football. That was my main sport. And so that's my teaching career. It started in Plano, did that for 5 years, got out of a marriage, met my current wife, and she was from Nebraska, and randomly met her at a Bedlam game. And then we started dating and talking. She was going to UNL. She was a Husker. And anyway, she graduated, and I was still in Plano, and she moved to the city here. She moved to Oklahoma City, and she worked for a oil company here, got a job. And so I was like, okay, you better decide real quick, and so I resigned from teaching in Texas, and I moved to Oklahoma City. Did a year at Newcastle, and then I did my next 4 years at Deer Creek Edmond.
Nice.
And I loved that place. I loved that job. And I can keep going into like after COVID and how I got out of teaching.
I do have a few questions before you do. Back to the FFA stuff. Why did you show sheep over every other animal?
So that's a good question. If you asked me that, like how I felt about sheep then.
I'm from Wales, and there's more sheep in Wales than people, right? Like,
that's true.
Like 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of sheep in Wales.
A lot of sheep.
And the mad thing is we export all the lamb because we get so much money for it.
That's crazy.
Right? So we don't really grow up. Never grew up eating lamb. It was like funny. Beef and a chicken and everything else.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the sheep question, because sheep's very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. Well, they weren't very near and dear to my heart.
That's what I'm saying. I just say have to look at them on
Yeah.
the golf course. Like I never had to worry about sheep shearing and all the other
Yes,
stuff.
that's-
Like they're mischievous little things.
No,
Aren't they?
yeah, they are. They're hard-headed for sure. So the reason I got into that is my mom remarried, and my stepdad Kevin had been raising them forever. Him and his mom, his brother, they had their own show sheep business. And so kind of stepping into that FFA role, that was my project. I mean, it was a natural fit. Hey, yeah, let's do this. I love the farming, work. There's work there behind the sheep showing deal. And so that's how I got into it. And I did that for like 6 years.
It's a great program, right? For all
Yeah.
the kids to go through it.
No, I mean, minus the sheep thing, like there's so much that FFA has to offer. And like that I learned from that, not only going out and meeting people and go to the FFA convention here in the city every year. It's hard work, I remember like my stepdad would go to work and I would go feed before I got ready for school, 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning. I'd go feed, go to school, go to football practice, come home, and then you still had work to do when you got home to take care of those animals. So I think that instilled a lot in me as a young person about responsibility.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good. And I mean, the Oklahoma ag department's great. And obviously, they just do so many amazing things, and especially connected, with the school in Stillwater and everything. It's there's so many stories of people who've gone through FFA and leadership skills, gone to the ag college and Stillwater, and now doing amazing things. And fortunately, I've had the experience of sharing those stories on the podcast as well, and everything from meat science to showing and all the other stuff. So yeah, it's big business, but it's as a kid growing up, the values that you get from that, and
Absolutely.
it's a great program. Tell me about the football team, being around OSU that time. Team wasn't that good during that time, right?
It was a little rough. I think
Yeah.
Gundy came in 04?
Something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think I should know that, but no, he came in. It was early stages, but so yeah, it was not the greatest time to be, maybe working for the football team. But man, there were so many great things about it, not just on the wins and losses side. There was so I got to see Coach Gundy on a daily basis and stuff, and like Coach Glass. If I walked in there right now, Coach Glass, I mean, he knows me, like just from those relationships and like good players, Justin Blackman, Des Bryant, Zach Robinson, Brandon Whedon, like those dudes were all there, and I used to hang out with some of those guys when I was there, and they were just good dudes. But traveling, we got to go to all the games. I was at every single game. We'd take a plane. Sometimes we'd fly out the players. Sometimes we'd go out the day before to those stadiums. Well, we always did, but sometimes, there's 13 managers. You got to go to the stadium the day before, get it ready. So we'd leave on a Thursday night. You may go down to the Strip, that night, and then catch the bus at 2 a.m. or something. But we would travel on the Big Orange bus, and we would go set everything up. And basically that evening, the players would come in, like on a Friday, they would fly in that evening. We would do a little short practice, and then they would go to the hotel. We would pack everything up. We'd go to the hotel, do whatever. Next day, you got game day. Of course, that's a lot of work too. So, no, that was my life, for several months. But once you're in football season, I mean, it's a business, Division I football, and so I learned about the business side of it. And, when you're a manager, all the ins and outs that nobody knows. Yeah. Like injuries and everything. And so, like, you kept your mouth shut essentially because you were looking out for your players, you're looking out for your team and stuff. And there was just a lot of inside stuff that normal people don't see. But I also saw all the work that goes into it. Those uniforms and those helmets, those managers do all that. The reason those helmets look so awesome are because of those managers. How everything flows on the field, the structure and the headsets and everything, that's managers. And I had no idea. I was a player growing up in high school, and now that I'm on the other side of it, lots of cool things, man. Yeah. I mean, I could talk a long time about it.
Do it. We got time. I want to hear about it.
I mean, that was kind of the thing. And then being around the players every day.
Yeah.
like people would brag, like, oh yeah, this and that, this dude. I'm like, they're just normal dudes, and those coaching staff, they always treated us really well. And I was assigned to a couple of coaches here and there, and we would set practice up every day. We would run the practice, and then we would, after practice breakdown, we would break it all down, put everything back up, and go back to our normal lives of being a college student again. But I mean, it was living the dream. It was the best job. It was a lot of work, but it was the best job that if you were a student and wanted to be involved in something, I didn't have to be a part of a fraternity. That was my niche. That was my group. And I needed those 13 guys and my boss or something and those players. And I mean, it was a blast. So all of that fun and the experience and the relationships that I saw within the whole system, from the athletic director to Coach Gundy down to those individual players and coaches, I saw that and I was like, I want to be a part of it. I want to influence you kids' lives. And so high school football was my thing. Yeah. And so I did that for 10 years.
What was your favorite stadium you went to on the road?
First game I ever worked was in Georgia. And oh my gosh, I'm going blank right now who the quarterback was. He's the quarterback for the St. Louis Rams right now.
Yes, it's better than
And oh my gosh, Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
Matthew Stafford was there at the time. They crushed us. We still had Bobby Reed as our quarterback at the time. Sorry, Bobby, I like you, man. But anyways, that was really cool to go to the SEC and do that. Now Georgia's a lot better than they were then, but we played in the Seattle Seahawks Stadium. My second game of the first game of 2008 or 7, we played Washington State there. Nice. That was fun. The bowl games are kind of the fun thing. We got to play at the San Diego Stadium, the Charger Stadium. We played Oregon, the Ducks there. They beat us. Those are some of the stadiums that kind of come to my attention. And then after I left, the Big 12 kind of changed a little bit right in there. So I didn't get to go to Morgantown and places like that. But it was, those are pretty cool. I mean, minus all the Big 12 teams or games.
What was Bedlam like? Did you go to Bedlam in Norman?
Yes.
How was that experience?
I do not like Norman.
Same.
I do not like... Let me rephrase that. I do not like Norman in an orange shirt, me in an orange shirt.
You working for the enemy, basically.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of the Sooners. Yeah. And I'm an Okie, right? Born and raised here, whatever. I am through and through orange, but I'm not a huge fan of Sooners. And I really got a good taste of that when I was a manager. You're in it. And then I remember going out, and we would go out with the kickers, and we were shagging balls for them, and this is what set me off is we're in Norman, and I know going into this game, 90% of the time they're going to beat us. Like I just know that they're going to beat us, and I shouldn't say that as a poke.
No, but
guy, but I know
the facts.
It is what it is.
Probability says that you're going to lose.
Yeah, and so if we do win, it's like a surprise to me. I'm happy. So, but traditionally in the past, they've always been better than us. And I know I shouldn't say it, but I'm just trying to be realistic.
Until this year.
Until this year, right? Yeah. Stuff happens, right? Yes. My Cowboys are in my heart. But, man, we were out there shagging balls, and these guys, the student section, we're kicking in the OU student section. And this is before they updated the stadium at the time. And the kicker was kicking them, and they would toss them, and you could see the ball. They'd catch it because they didn't have a nets up. They would take the ball and they'd throw it back 10 or 15 yards, throw it back, and eventually they'd throw it over the stadium. And they did it about 4 or 5 times. And my boss, I probably shouldn't say what he did. What we started putting on the footballs, like the next.
Well, it's the statute of limitations is probably gone now. Yeah, so it's been more than 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the right phrase for it. You're good.
Yeah, and they would cuss us flip us off. And I mean, I'm being serious. Like that's where I was like, this sucks. I hate being a Norman. And I guess that's all part of it. You know, there's no telling what players go through on that. You know, the big time players, they get a lot of that stuff. And I'm just a little manager, you know, I'm just running out there doing my job, and they're tormenting me and my buddies. And so that was kind of I was like, anyways, but see, my job was interesting. I guess I didn't note this, but my boss, when I first started, he said, you're going to be on the opposite side. So I was, out of the 2 years that I worked for the team, I was never on our side. I was always on the opposing side as a ball boy. There were 3 of us. And so, and I don't know how it happened, but I got placed like in the middle. So I was always next to, you know, Mac Brown or something like that, those guys at the time, which was pretty cool experience, to be honest with you, because I'd be with these guys for months, you know, every day of the week. And on game day, I got to be on the other side. And now I saw, like, I use Mac Brown as an example, because that guy, he was so respectable and so respectful. He would come over and he would shake our hands before the game started. I mean, like, that was pretty cool. Like, I'm just a, you know, nobody. And he, you know, would be really nice to us. So that was a neat experience. And I'm at Georgia. First game, I'm nervous, right? You're out there in front of a huge stadium trying not to drop a punt or something. Yeah, so I'm on the sideline at Georgia. It's our first game. I mean, the stadium, I want to say there's 90,000 there, maybe. And I'm just hanging out on the Georgia sideline doing my thing, and I turn and look, and there's the Outcast. You know, they're hanging out, and of course, they're funny outfits and stuff, but it's just like, I was like, this is going to be a fun job at that point, you know? Yeah. And so, anyways.
Was Andre 3000?
Yes, yeah. Andre, yeah, 3000. Yeah. Sorry, thank you. It's been a minute. I hadn't listened to him in a while. But anyways, yeah, it was like, this is pretty fun. We were getting beat, which, you know, but in my experience, I was like, this is fun. Nebraska was a cool place. That was the year we went up there. I'm going bouncing around here, but Nebraska, we went there and we beat them. And it was the first time we beat them since like, since like the 40s. Oklahoma State had beat Nebraska in Lincoln.
That's huge.
It was a long time. And I remember the coach there was not doing very good. Maybe Coach Callahan at the time. They were cheering us on after we beat them, walking back into the stadium or into the locker room. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are the best fans ever. Like, because it had been that long, it's a huge accomplishment for Oklahoma State to go into Lincoln and do that. And my wife is a Husker now, so I always tell, you know, that story. And anyways, no, I love Nebraska.
Yeah.
But that was a good experience too, so.
A lot of cool locker room stories from the guys winning whenever the games did come that you're winning, and just, I mean, you're right in the mix of it, right? Like, you got the best job and the best seat in the house, and you don't have to play.
Well, I'll tell you a secret here. Do you remember when Coach Gundy had his blow up on I'm a Man, I'm 40?
Yeah.
Me and my buddies were in the locker room at Oklahoma State. I forgot what team it was. He, the way that was structured, he did his interview and he had to come through the locker room to go back to the office or whatever. And all the players are gone. He's the last one. And we're in there picking up game cleats. And he comes through there and he goes, boys, don't watch the news tonight. That's the first thing he said to us. And, you know, he didn't talk to us a whole lot. And he said that, and we were all like, kind of looked around each other like, what? And, you know, sure enough, that became like one of the biggest memes ever.
Iconic moment in Oklahoma State history.
Yeah, and I love it or whatever. But I remember that specific time, him walking through there, and we didn't know what that would turn out to be or anything. So
yeah.
But no, lots of good locker room memories and stuff, and lots of good players. Ex-players that would come through there. I mean, Barry Sanders would come through there, you know, on homecoming, Thurman Thomas, those guys. And of course, celebrities every now and then. But, man, I had the best job ever. And I had really good bosses. I had really good, you know, it was just everybody in that business was really good. And they all cared for the team in orange. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was very lucky.
Yeah, no, that covers a lot of ground. I'm glad we talked about that. So you come back to Oklahoma City, you go to Newcastle for a year, then you go to Deer Creek for 3 or 4 years. Transition then into the farm stuff, right, from there. How do we get into cross timbers? And you said mum earlier before we started recording, you said mum's got a shop in Sulphur. So is it a family business? And how do you get into that?
Yeah, so I was working at Deer Creek. I was in my 4th year and deep into high school football, 6A2, all that. We just entered 6A2 at the time, and loving Deer Creek. But that was 2020, and in 2018, we started raising bison.
Okay.
So we started with 5 bison. Me and Marissa and my stepdad, Kevin, went and picked 5 up in Stratford, Oklahoma, not far from us, 5 yearlings. And so we started that in 2018. Meanwhile, Marissa worked a full-time job. I was still coaching and teaching in Deer Creek. And you're like, well, there's a distance between Edmond and Sulphur. Well, my parents, my mom and Kevin, had 40 acres. And it was actually an old existing dairy farm. And so there was partial barn, partial corral, water. There was a way to start, which helped us. My mom and them basically said, well, here's some land if you want to start this passion. And so that's how that started. So we brought them first 5 in there. So we had Kevin there. Kevin, mom and them lived on this place. They built a new home there. And so they could look out their window and see the bison. That's how close they were.
Yeah.
And so Kevin, luckily, had a lot of experience. And I remember Kevin is the guy who started me on the FFA on the sheep thing. So he had worked at Arbuckle Wilderness. Some people remember that place, still exists there when it was good. Kevin worked there. He had the experience around bison and exotic animals. So it was not anything for him to do that, take care of them. So Kevin took that on. So during the week, Kevin would take care of them. I would coach and teach. And on Saturdays, I'm still doing film breakdown. We'd be done about 1 or 2. Marissa and I would get in our car. We would drive to Sulphur. We would do whatever work we had to do, spend time, do our family thing, get up Sunday, drive back to Oklahoma City, and I'd have to be in film at 1 to work. And that was what we did literally for 2 years. In 2019, I started the YouTube channel. So it's kind of sequential here. May of 2018, we got our bison. May of 2019, I started the YouTube. And meanwhile, we're still doing the weekend trips. And then, because when I wasn't coaching football, you do 2 sports. You transition into basketball. Well, there's no break. So I just flew right into basketball. And of course, sometimes you play games on Saturdays. So it was a very busy life.
Yeah.
And then 2020, Marissa had Brooks, our daughter, who's a 3 now. In February of 20, she had her. Okay, everything was normal at that point.
You got lucky before March.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel bad for all the moms of 2020. But yeah, when we went, so in March rolled around, Brooks is a month old or so, COVID hit. Well, we went on spring break. And I remember leaving the class and stuff, and there was nothing that I was concerned about. I don't remember at the time. Went on spring break. Spring break came around. I was like, things were getting serious. So we were in Sulphur now at this point. We had a house at our cabin place. We have a cabin rental there in Sulphur. And so that's where we lived on the weekends. So we're there. COVID happens. They say, we're not coming back. And then they pushed it back. And they pushed it back. So everything went online. Well, while I was at home, I'm not sitting around devoting 100% to teaching because it's all online now. I took care of business. Now I got to work on the cabins and take care of that, start projects there. Now I got to spend more time with the bison. And then my wife and I are spending time with our daughter, and she's on maternity leave. And so this is not bad. So that's whenever she looked at me and said, what do you think about not going back to teaching? And I was super nervous with the steady income, not having that steady income and insurance and all those things. And I was like, okay. Well, when May hit, after school was out, I'd got my 5 years. So I was vested, essentially, with the state. And we decided kind of over the summer, really, like, if we're going to do this, because you can take care of the property, you can do your Bison thing, because I was starting the YouTube. I already did the YouTube channel now. I'm getting into that. And so we decided that I would do that. Well, she essentially got to stay home almost the rest of 2020. She didn't have to come back to Oklahoma City because they didn't make them come back in the office. 21 came around, she had to go back. So this is where it got kind of hard. Marissa, basically, we still had our house in Oklahoma City. Marissa would live up here during the week. And by this time, we're committed. So I would take care of the cabins, take care of the Bison, and I became a stay-at-home dad. And so I kind of ran that operation, and Marissa would work her full-time job in the city Monday through Friday. She would come home Friday at 5. She got off, and she would spend the weekend with us. And then a lot of times she would get up Monday morning at 4 or 5 a.m. and drive back to the city from Sulphur. It's an hour and a half drive. Yeah. We did that live for a year and a half. And she got to come home, right, April 30th of 2023.
Yeah.
So
this year.
A year and a half-ish is what I want to say. She did the back and forth thing and, was away from me. And so she did most of the sacrificing and kept up, You
had a great time raising your daughter.
Yeah,
Bison.
I did, But, and it was hard. I don't think it was hard then. Now I look at it, I'm like, how did we balance that out? And, just a marriage itself of me trying to operate and still be a husband, and I only get to see my wife 2 days out of the week, and Brooke's not seeing her mom. So I do have to get a lot of credit to her for sacrificing that job and keeping the steady income, coming in, and insurance when you have a child. So I give a lot of that to her because she missed out on the first year and a half, or 2. I guess when Brooks was 2 to 3, Marissa wasn't able to do that, be with her. She gets to come home this year, and so basically from May of 2023, she's been home, and so it's been like a little normal, maybe a normal life, but. Yeah. Now we're like busier than ever. So
where does the idea, the dream, the passion come from to start to have bison on land? Like, where does that come from?
Okay, so I'll back up. In 2004, when I was about to graduate high school from Sulphur, I'd already had this vision of being a wildlife major, and fortunately, we have the Chickasaw National Recreation Area in Sulphur, a national park. You grow up looking, there's a herd there. Yeah. There's a small herd in the park. And so you just grow accustomed to seeing them every day, and you're like, that's a cool animal, and you're lucky if you could see them at the Buffalo Lookout. Well, my Oklahoma history teacher, her husband, was the chief of resource management. Now, it's a fancy term, but he basically took care of the wildlife side, the ecology side of the park. Well, her husband did that, and he said, I've got 2 spots open this summer. And I'm like, oh, perfect. I can work in a national park in my hometown. I can go to Stilley, come back, and do this. And so that's what I did. I worked there, I think, 4 summers. I was a GS5. I got into the government. That was my first step into the National Park Service, and I got to take care of those bison. So I'll dive into that. He said, Steve, my boss, he said, okay, one of your responsibilities on a daily basis is to take care of the bison. And so I said, heck yeah. So me and my brother-in-law, he wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, but Daniel, we worked there together. He graduated from Sulphur. He's a year or 2 older than me. And we were the summer interns, essentially. but we were like full-time hirees or whatever. And we got in the government vehicle that we were issued, and it was a Bronco. I want to say a Ford Bronco. No, our Chevy Blazer. It's an older Chevy Blazer, and white. And we drove it out there. Had four-wheel drive, lock-in hubs, and we pull out there, and there's a big bull out there, and his name was Crooked Horn. He's actually he passed away in like 2008 or so, and he has this weird drop down horn. His body is actually a full mounted body in the park. You can go to the nature center, Sulphur, and you can see him. And we pull out there with cubes because in the summer the pasture they were on was terrible, and so we would cube them. And so I dove all in. I'm like, heck yeah. So we pull out there and we start cubing them, and basically, to break down what cubing them is if from the local feed store, you could buy a 50-pound bag of little cubes and 3/4 size cubes, cattle cubes, essentially, like a 14% or 20% protein. And that's what you gave them as a supplement because there wasn't a lot of grass back there. Yeah. And that's what we did. And I just remember feeding him out of my hand, and his massive head and his structure and his everything he had. I'm like, this is amazing. This is an awesome animal. And of course, we pulled some shenanigans back there to test them and figure out, there's some stories I can't say on here, like in the National Park Service, wearing a uniform. Yeah. But we definitely learned a lot about bison and what they could do in that back pasture. Nothing bad, just being
guys, right?
Just being dudes. Yeah, you're going to test your limits of stupidity. Kind of being sort of safe. But I just saw that interaction with them, and I was just pulled in, man. I was done. And I was like, this is a sweet animal. I love it. Yeah. This is like nothing compared to sheep.
Right.
No offense to sheep people or cattle people. You grow up looking at cattle, and it's just a normal thing. And I love beef, still eat beef. So it was just, I was in love. And so every day, we were able to go and check them mostly. Anyways, because that's kind of my role in the wildlife ecology. So that's where I got hey, I want to go work in the National Park Service. Yeah. And then it didn't work out for me, whatever. And so that's where it led me to teaching. Yeah. So that's my first step up close with a bison. And so from 2004 is really where I was hooked. Then when I went to Stillwater, there was one of our classes, animal husbandry. I don't know what class it was. I did a 20-page paper on bison. I got to choose what animal I want to do. And that's where I learned about their history. I didn't know a whole lot about their background. And so that's where I learned about the 30 to 60 million populations that they had in the 1800s, and then, kind of the decline of them. And so I was like, here's an animal right here in my hometown. They have such a cool story. And that's where it started buzzing in my head. Like, I told my boss, I was like, I'd love to be a part of this and raise these animals someday. That was 2007-8, right? 10 years later, my wife supported me in that and jumped on board with me, and now we have it.
That's awesome. For some context, how much does 5 yearlings cost?
Okay, well, right now, I don't remember how much I bought them at the time. No, I do. I think at the time I bought, which is Dunbar today, Dunbar and 4 other yearling heifers for, I want to say, $1,200 a piece. Okay. And I bought 5.
What are they now?
Right now, you can probably buy them for about $1,500 a piece. I mean, the market, it's not as crazy as the beef industry, but it definitely fluctuates, and right now it's on uprise. Yeah. Last year, you could probably could have bought them for about $1,000 or $1,200. It was kind of down, but it also depends on where you're getting them from, quality. But I was getting them from one of the biggest names in the bison industry, and I had no idea. Like, Doc Parsons he's a bison vet. Yeah. He's a vet for in Stratford. And then and I'll go just a little bit further, but I went to my first NBA conference, which is a National Bison Association conference in Denver, and he's speaking. And I'm like, maybe this guy's way bigger than I know.
Just a guy from Stratford.
Yeah, it's just a guy from Stratford. You know, it's the Peaches, not home of the Bison. But, yeah, and so, like, that relationship started there. I was like, oh, my gosh, what a mentor. And we can go down that road, but, like, he's been a big mentor to me. But so I didn't know that at the time. But, yeah, I'd say I think there were about 12 or 13. I still have the receipt of those first 5. And so part of those first 5 is Dunbar, Peaches, Eleanor, you know, one of the famous cows, and then Bellstar. Did I say Bellstar, Peaches, Eleanor? Anyway, I'd lost one my first year, too, in that group. Her name was Lucy. First bison I ever lost. At the time, I didn't have a squeeze chute, and you have to worm them or work them. I call it work them. You have to work them twice a year. We'd have to load them up in the trailer and actually take them back to Doc because he had a really nice system, and he would give them their vaccinations, or what we just call wormer. Well, we brought them home one time, and I went out and bought some bison. I got some from the Quapaw Nation, actually, so some of those animals. So I was trying to grow a little bit, and we had to go worm them because we didn't have a facility for them yet. And we came home, and I unloaded them back into the corral off the trailer, and I counted them as they came out, and I'm like, I feel like we're missing one. And all of them were out, I thought, and I went in there and looked, and she was laid down, like, complete, like, just, she was dead. And I went in there and started feeling around. I was like, there's no blood or nothing. I'm like, what is going on? She just is it a shot? I mean, was it their wormer? Can't be. And so I called Doc immediately. I'm like, hey, Doc, one of these yearlings is down, and she's dead. And he's like, well, he goes, feel around. He's like, check behind her shoulder. Do you feel any holes? And I flipped her up on her side. I mean, by this time, they're 600 pounds, so it's not just something you just pick up and throw around. And sure enough, there was no blood. I found a hole, like basically where you would shoot a deer.
Okay. Right
there in the vitals area, and she had been gored. Oh. And the sucky part about it was she was just wormed, which means you can't eat them at that point. Yeah. You have to wait, 45, 60 days for all that to hit them. So there was nothing I could do at that point. So we took her hide. I still have her hide. We got her hide, and we got her skull, and that was about all we could do. Because at that point, you can't take them to a processor. No.
Brutal.
Yeah, and that was
circle of life, big time. Like,
that was in my first year, and it wasn't just a little calf that had issues or nothing. It was one of my core females, and I still think about her today. So from then on, my wife looked at me and she goes, "We're getting a squeeze chute. Yeah, we're doing it. Yeah. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna build it." And I said, "Okay." So, dive into that business.
What? Talk to me a little bit about kind of like why you dove into the YouTube and the social media side of things, and like what also when you started, like what was the business plan? Did you have social media in the plan, and did you think we're gonna have clothes and hats and we're gonna have an online store? Like, tell me about like how all that has unfolded, because I mean, I just checked, you have 214,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think it's 114,000 on Instagram, and you've got one video that's done like 23 million views. Like, it's wild, right? Like, it's incredible. But my questions are, kind of multiple questions is, what was the business plan starting out, and then the social media side of things, how has that like come in and also positively impacted the business?
My wife would laugh, but I don't have a business. I'm not a business minded.
So you just want to buy some on
absolutely. This is cool. This is fun. I've grown to think a little more like that, but I'm just I think for me it was, I wanted to support something, and I was like, there's a really cool story here. These animals, why can't I take them and try to help the conservation, restoration side of these animals. And then after I have them, then you start thinking about, well, yeah, you got to pay the bills. You got to build more fences. You want to buy some more? Okay, well, how are you going to get to that point? So I didn't really have the business mindset. I was like, I could take these animals, we could create some really good breeding stock, and I could sell them, to other producers. That takes a lot of time of investment in those animals to get to that point where they're reproducing and having good stock that you could sell. So I have to be honest, I didn't have the business mindset. My wife has the business mindset. And so I feel like the work ethic into putting in everything, like I'm going to go all in and I'm going to try to do the right things for these animals. You need good handling equipment. I can do that. I'm going to work. I can weld. I can build fence. I can do those things. I can feed them and tend to them and be the best producer I can be. So I was like, I can be that guy. The work, the rancher, whatever you call it. So that was the first side of it. Now, how did I get onto YouTube? I have to be honest. There's a little story here. I'm sitting in my classroom. What year was that? 2019, early 2019. My brother-in-law at the time, Daniel from Armstrong Homestead, had been talking to me about it. He said, you need to do it. You need to do it. I don't know what he was at this point. He's like a homestead guy. He had been doing it for 5 or 6 years. So he was kind of one of the first homestead guys on YouTube. He was one of the pioneers of that. By that time, I think he's got 400,000, 300 or 400, 400,000 followers. And he had a lot of followers. I'm sitting in my classroom, and somehow our family message pops up, and they're like, Daniel's out with the bison. I think my wife sent me a message, said Daniel's out there with the bison videoing them. I'm like, what? Of course, he's doing a live, right, on YouTube, and he's at the place. He's at Mom and Kevin's, and he's out there with the bison. And I guess he needed some content at the time. He wanted to show something different, and he's out there telling his followers that he's trying to get me to do this. And so,
just calling you out.
Yeah, he basically was. And I saw that, and I showed my kids my class that day. They were like, what is it? And so, anyways, that was kind of the push, I like to say. That was like, well, he just called me out. Now I need to do it. Because I had kind of thought about it. Here's the deal, is like, I remember Marissa and I sitting in our living room when we could do this and didn't have a child, didn't have to watch all the other shows, but we got to watch YouTube. And this was something that kind of influenced me or encouraged me to do this, is we would sit there and you couldn't find anything on YouTube or really social media about bison. And I'm like, this is crazy. You're telling me this is America's mammal and there's not that much out there. There's Ted Turner stuff. There's old documentaries out there. But there was nothing consistent. I'm like, this is a shame. Yeah. And so that's kind of the background. I'm like, hey, I need to, there needs to be more information out there on these animals. And of course, growing up in Oklahoma, it's our state mammal. I'm like, it's everywhere. You can't drive in Oklahoma City and not see a bison somewhere. And all the statues across the state. So it's this very symbolic animal. They've gone through tragedy where they almost disappeared, from us. We have the Native American culture, and that they were so essential to them. Why aren't we? Something missing. Right. And so I took and natural teaching mindset, I think, from teaching. And so in 2019 in May, I did my first video. And naturally, when I went out there, because there was nothing on YouTube, I went into the teaching mindset of showing people, hey, there's people that raise these animals. Let me talk to you about what's going on here. And man, I refused to watch those videos, by the way. Like my first...
Did you edit them at all?
I did. Yeah.
It's tough to do that and to keep up with it and do all that stuff. Like, it's not easy.
It is, man. And I remember editing, and I could do a little bit of edit, but I wasn't great at it. And I just used iMovie on the Mac to do it and figured out a groove. But my first 5 or 6 were... I refused to watch them because it's embarrassing. The hardest thing was seeing yourself in your phone.
Yeah.
Like
it's
the
really
camera.
hard. Yeah.
And hearing yourself talk when you go to edit it, and you're embarrassed because other people were going to listen to you edit.
Yeah.
So I had to get over those things, and that's kind of where that went, and how it started. And then how it grew, I tell you what, it really grew this past summer. So YouTube's funny. And you may get this with others on social media, but of course, all the analytics and everything on it, it's wild. So I just kept posting. That was my thing. And I was still coaching and teaching at the time. And I would come and film. I think I was doing 1 video a week. That was my goal. And I think Daniel was doing it at the same time, because I would just kind of structure, okay, well, he's doing this, So I did the 1 video a week. So I'd film that on the Saturday, in between football work days. And it grew. And I had an initial push from him. I think he threw me out there.
Yeah.
And so I got some of those followers. So I'm very thankful for him to kind of give me that boost, because if you tried to do that today, it's very hard.
Yeah. Starting from scratch is extremely hard. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I had a little forward in there and an initial following. And so from there, I just kept posting, and I tried to grow, tell the story. Why am I doing this? And give them background history of what I knew of the Bison. Just basically replicating my experience and what my visions and stuff. So that's kind of how it grew. But then, of course, as you start diving in more and more to YouTube, there's videos that have stood us apart. And I think one video, the working videos is where it gets really...
does that surprise you?
Well, when you go back and watch the old videos, it really... I'm like, what the heck was I doing? But, you have to do it, because we committed to having our own squeeze shoot and set up, and so we started working them there, and I was like... the first couple of ones I posted did really well, of us actually working them, because why people like the working videos at Mom and Kevin's is because it's a manual squeeze shoot. There's a lot of moving parts, just
just pushing a button.
Yeah, like a hydraulic, there's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of sound, there's a lot of banging.
It's a giant animal.
Yeah, and we're all learning at the same time. My animals have never been through this system, and then you just do all these things, and it's very empowering. There's a lot of adrenaline, and I would be so tired after working them, just because, not that I worked that hard. It wasn't that. It was mentally stressful. I want to make sure I keep all my animals safe and the people helping me. Okay, so those videos always did good, and I think they gave me pushes through YouTube. One video that really stood out was Lumpy. My uncle called me. It could be a long story, but basically in Lindsay, Oklahoma, around Lindsay, Croner area, my uncle called me. I call him my uncle. He's my dad's best friend. He called me and said, "Hey, there's a bison out here." He's got this funny accent. And he said, "There's a bison out here with her cows." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, there's a bison out here with her cows." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, we don't want it." He's like, "Do you want it?" I'm like, he's like, "It's got a big lump on it." And I'm like a hernia or something? He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." Well, a month went on, whatever. I didn't really think anything about it. He's like, "Hey, can we get this bison out of here?" Not that he was hurting anything. He was just a yearling. I'm like, "Sure." Well, I'm like, "How are we going to catch him?" I was like, "You got a good corral?" And he's like, "Nah, ours is not very good." And of course, when you push bison, you better have some good equipment. And he's like, "No." He's like, "Okay, well, let me call Doc. Let me call my vet." And I was like, "Doc, can you meet me at Croner at this place, and you bring the tranquilizer, and because only vets are legal to do that with the drug." And so, yeah.
And
so
that's like shooting them with a tranquilizer dart?
Yeah, dart gun.
Safest way to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's out in the pasture.
Yeah, you're not going to run up to that thing.
I mean, you'd have to feed him and train. I know he could have done that with his cows, but his corral was not par to catching a bison. So we just tranquilized him. We went out there, and everybody's watching. Doc just walks up there, shoots him, and then he waited about 15 minutes. He staggered him, but he wouldn't go down. He shot him again, and then finally he went down. And so that was the story of where Lumpy started.
Yeah.
And I don't know now, but it was my biggest video at the time. I think it has 8 million now. But that is, we rescued a bison. We did. Yeah. We brought him back. We put him with other bison. I raised him for a year. I took him to Oklahoma State. He had a massive hernia, like the size of a girl's basketball. And I think the story, what Doc said, is probably, they're like, well, how did he end up in this pasture? How did he jump the fence and end up with these cows? Doc said that a lot of, and I'm not cutting horse trainers out of this situation. Not all of them do this, but they use bison to train cutting horses. Okay. And so more than likely, he was used for that. He got gored. He got injured. He either got out or they let him out. So I ended up on my uncle's place, Dean's, and then we went and rescued him and brought him back. Anyways, I felt really bad for him. He came home, or he came to our place, got weight on him. His hair started to shed. He started looking better. Now, he was stunted because of his life. He wasn't by no means, this guy was not going to be a production breed bull. I took him to Oklahoma State, we did an x-ray. Basically, bison have 5 stomachs like a cow. And one of those stomachs protruded through that opening, through the wall. And so you just have this massive hernia. And so I went to Oklahoma State to show the followers and myself, this could be a really expensive surgery. Yeah. And if you do that, he could stress out and die just because of their socialness in a facility by himself. I'm like, it's not worth doing the surgery. Plus, he's not,
He's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he's... For now. Yeah. And so that was one of the first videos that really, really did good. And so from then on, it's like this summer we had a really big boost where I think I hit the 200,000 mark, and we jumped quite a bit there.
So you're still staying consistent 1 week? Was trying to stay consistent?
No, I'm 2.
You're 2
Yeah,
now?
so I think in 2021, we've been doing it a while. I started going 2 a week. And so I post on YouTube on Sundays and Thursdays typically.
And fully monetized, and it's helping pay for stuff.
So eventually, on YouTube and Facebook, you have to hit so many followers and you have to hit so many hours on each one of those platforms to start earning an income and getting the AdSense or getting the paid views or the paid advertisement, whatever. And so I started earning an income off of those, Facebook and YouTube. And it, here's the difference what we do versus lots of YouTube or influencers. They're not spending, tons of money, on there's a lot of money going on in the background.
Yes.
So we're ranching. Yeah. We're raising animals. You got to pay for feed. You got to pay for fences. You got to pay for land. You got to pay for all those things. And so I'm not employed. I'm self-employed now. Yeah. And so just from the YouTube thing, so we started to be able to earn enough income I could pay my bills.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so basically I was like, this is going to work. And I love the connection with the followers. People just love. They're like, people didn't even know that bison still existed. Mm-hmm. There's people out there that didn't know that, and they don't know anything about the American bison. I still get that today. Yeah. And so that's my job to keep, promoting these animals. And so I just took that on, and I love doing it. I love showing them. And, it's a family thing. Our daughter's as a part of it, and hopefully she will in the future. And we're trying to build something else that's bigger than ourselves. Yeah. So
no, it's awesome, man. It's great that you can have, and it just by making money from it, it just reinforces the the fact that you should double down on this, go to 2 videos a week, and really use your teaching skills to share this message, and the money you make from it goes. It's not like you're going out and buying a brand new truck because you want to buy a brand new truck.
Yeah.
You're like, this is going to build a new fence or to feed or like vet bills or whatever it is. Like, and people watching the videos get to see that as well. So they just reinforce that, and then you tie into. Yeah, you're selling hats and you got merch, and now you're on the meat side of it too, right? So you've got all of this kind of works together in this giant circle of like, hey, now we have this business that has. You look at a spider web and it's got a bunch of different arms off it that all generate income for the main goal, which is raising bison.
Yes, yeah, that's right. It. I mean, you said it really well. That's because we had the following, and I always think. Well, we started with merch. I remember doing it out of one of our spare bedrooms. Marissa and I in there printing labels and packaging them up, and of course it's grown from there. But I saw an opportunity here. We've got all these bison. It's a bison focused channel. There's lots of channels that are super diverse and doing lots of different things. Mine was just bison. I found that niche. That's the reason I think that helped me is I was one of the only ones that did it consistently. Yeah. There were some guys out there that would film it, and it didn't have to be a high production or nothing, but we started being consistent, and I think that's what helped us. So we did the 2 a week, every Sunday, Thursday. That's where the consistency helped us grow. So we saw the people, we saw the followers, we saw the loving and the care, and I'm like, I think about Ted Turner. He made a quote one time in one of those YouTube videos. I saw a documentary he did, and he said, if you want more bison, you got to eat more bison. And I'm like that doesn't make any sense, You're telling me I got to kill this animal and eat it so we can have more? Yeah. You really think about it. I mean, that guy owns 1/8 of the bison population in our country.
Right, nuts.
That tells you something.
Yeah.
He's a huge part of where we are today with the bison. I think we're 600-ish thousand now in North America. Yeah. And so you look at that and you're like, he's right. And so I'm a huge fan. I brought you jerky today.
It's fantastic, by the way.
I love jerky. Like, I remember making jerky with my mom's dehydrator. It was deer jerky. I was in high school. I'm like, I've always been a fan of it, and I always wanted to do jerky. And I'm like, how do you reach people? By, here's a chance, have some bison jerky. And it's healthy for you, all the benefits of it. And that's where the jerky and the sticks came in. We started doing that in 22, I believe. Yeah. And the meat side of it came into play because, man, it just takes a lot to get there to that point. And because, quickly for people to understand something, cattle take half of the time to get to a certain weight, what we call 1,000 pounds. Takes a bison about 2 years, let's say a bull, to reach that 1,000-pound mark. Well, now you can go process a bison, 1,100, 1,200 pounds, whatever your desire is of that weight. You can also breed a bison at 2 now. Steers can do that in a year and a half. Depends on how fast they're pumped. So your return on investment is a lot faster than bison. Yeah. You have to wait till they get that big. And so, it takes a long time for a guy like me that started with 5 yearlings to get to that point. And so by 2022, we had built up our following and stuff. I felt like, well, we've got to give back somehow. We've got to and try to create a business off of this and promote the animal. It's not just about going out here and filming and showing these awesome animals and the breeding side of it. There's a whole business side of it too. So that's why we did it.
And they taste great as well, right?
Yeah.
Like bison's some of the best meat out there.
Yeah, it is. And it's like in Oklahoma, you don't think about it. It's kind of hard to find. And even maybe across the country, like we ship from California to Florida, like in the East Coast, people can't maybe not reach it, and maybe it's a decent price for them to ship it. So
to that point, what is your favorite cut of meat?
Man, I really like the filet. My wife likes the ribeye, but they're both really good. I like a thick cut filet from a bison, and that's because I like mine about medium rare. Yeah. And have you had a bison steak?
I don't think I have.
Okay.
I want to say I have, but I can't remember. I've had elk and other things.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
a friend who's gone hunting. It's like, hey, I've got some meat. Do you want some?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially elk.
Yeah. So, it wasn't really it was like a corporate hunt thing. His company, he's a salesman. We're like, hey, take a bunch of clients out there, and it wasn't it wasn't hard work.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. But every year he goes and he's like, I don't have enough room in my freezer.
Yeah.
Yes, bring as much as you can.
Take as much elk as you can get.
Yeah. Which is great. But no, I don't think I've had. I mean, I've probably had like a bison hamburger or whatever. At the garage.
The garage, yeah.
I've had one of those.
You can get it there.
Yeah, but I haven't. I don't think I've had a steak. No.
Here's the thing about bison is what's sad is if you've never had it before and you went to a place that had it on the menu and you had it and the cook didn't do a very good job of cooking it and maybe overcooked it because it cooks so much faster than beef. There's not so much fat. It's very lean. So if you went out somewhere and had it and it wasn't very good, now you have a bad taste in your mouth. Like, why would I ever eat this again? And that happens more than we know. And I've been a victim of that too. And I'm like, dadgummit. No, you got to cook it a certain way. You can't overcook it because it's like a deer or an elk. If you cook that, those are lean animals. Deer, elk, and bison, they're all on that same picture because they're lean animals. And so that's what happens a lot with bison is people are like, well, I'm not going to pay $2 or $3 extra for that burger patty or $20 more for that steak, whatever it is. They're not going to do it. And so, we're set back. But if you really look at the benefits of it, though, it's second highest, like right next to elk. I think elk is one of the highest proteins you can get, as far as a game animal. Bison is right up there with it. Yeah. And low in cholesterol, lower in fat than chicken. Lots of minerals. There's a lot of good things about it, but you got to have it cooked right. Is what I was asking.
Any tips and tricks on how do you obviously you said you like yours medium rare, but what's the tips and tricks on cooking it just for the masses out there?
Yeah, for me, I'm a medium rare guy,
okay.
And some people don't like that. But if you eat a bison well done, I don't think, in my opinion, if it's well done, like you may like your beef steak or whatever, I don't think you're getting the full taste of it because it's so lean and it gets to that temperature so much faster. To me, it's just not going to taste the same.
Yeah.
So for people who like their meat well done, you may try something different like a burger or something, or I don't know what else you can do, but.
Back to the social media side of things, have you had people want to come visit? Do you think about having people out? Have you had people out? What's the kind of thought on that?
Well, we get a lot of inquiries about people wanting to come do tours and stuff. And I'll be honest with you, the only people that really have came out to the ranch, besides friends and family, are people that are wanting to raise bison.
Okay.
I'm very open to that.
More of an educational tour rather than, hey, come see America's animals.
Yes. And we're not declining those people yet. We definitely want to do that. And so I can kind of make that up right now with our social media presence.
Okay.
So here's what we will allow people to come to the ranch, and we give them a tour of our facilities and how we work them. We show them our fencing. We show them what we feed them. We give them a breakdown, a learning strategy on if they're interested in raising bison. Because, I want people to, we need more bison out there. We'll never get to 30, 60 million. We know that. But there's nothing wrong with people raising bison. And so, like beef people, there's people that raise cattle that have come to our ranch that want to switch to bison. How creative, how awesome of a story is that? There's nothing wrong with beef. I want people to know that. But if you're into the regenerative thing like we are, and you're wanting to do those things and make the land better, your water better, your soil better, look at bison and see what they did it for hundreds of years on Great Plains. Yeah. There's a reason why the Great Plains are the way they are.
Yeah, dive into that for me then. Their preservation side of things, that's obviously a huge part of why you do this. What's the kind of nuts and bolts behind it?
Well, I mean, so I look at genetics.
Okay.
And I learned a lot of this from Gerald Parsons, my vet, my mentor I was talking about. So he is kind of the genetic guy. He's one of them. There's a lot of bison people out there. But when you go, he said the first thing that you need to do is if you're starting to raise bison, he said you need to start with good ones first. Don't just go out and just buy some random bison, because some producers or ranchers may not have good ones. And here's what happened in the bottleneck in the late 1800s. When those populations decreased rapidly and they got smaller, the bison were brought into cattle ranches. And it was great because they were catching them out on the frontier, which was awesome. They were bringing them into ranches. Well, a lot of people started the beefalo thing. And so you have a little wash up there of genetic diversity. And then, if you take an animal from millions down to less than 1,000, there's going to be some interesting things that happen with any animal. And it's happened with many animals in our country. And so I kind of keep that in mind. But I think that whatever animal that we have today left of the genetics of when the Native Americans were living off of them, and everything that we had before we were here, whatever we have of them, we try to keep that and hold on to it. Now, I don't know what the correct term for that is. If you call that restore, conserve, I don't know the correct term for that, but that's what we try to keep, is what we have. And so when you do that, you can test. There's ways that you can test to see what your animals have, and the number one thing is, let's keep cattle genes out. So if you've got bison out there that have it in them, and people still breed them to cattle and still make beefalo, which I highly discourage, we need to hold on to that, because we almost lost that animal. I'm almost gone. All the genetic diversity of where those bison that we have today, survived the last ice age. And so you've got to hold on to that. And so that's kind of where that passion of genetic diversity comes from, and paying attention to the genes. And we're so fortunate. Do you know that the Wichita Mountains is one of the most prestigious?
People don't know that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's very underrated place.
Yeah, it is and not only is its own unique world down there in, Lawton or Medicine Park area, but those bison there are some of the most genetically diverse bison from the last rescue of them. And they all started from the Bronx Zoo. Well, where did those animals come from? Because they were caught out on the range when they started to disappear. And then the Bronx Zoo started their own conservation program. Well, I want to say, and it's down there at the museum there at the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge. I think in 1900s, 1915, 20, somewhere in there, they loaded them up on a rail car, hauled them by rail down there, I think 15 or 20 animals, something like that, dropped them off at Cache, and then drove them, like cattle drive, to the Wichita Mountains Refuge, and said, there you go. And when you drive down there, you pass that, you drive over the cattle garden, it's like,
yeah,
it's pretty awesome, Yeah. But no, those animals there are, there's people that talk about 3 or 4 places in America that have the best genetics of what's left of American bison, genus species, Yellowstone. And you talk about the Wichita Mountains, and there's a couple more in there, like Wind Cave or something, but there's 2 or 3 places. And when you talk about it compared to Yellowstone, you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, those animals, now they're not going to be as huge and magnificent because of location. There's a difference in Yellowstone and a difference in Lawton, Oklahoma, right? But the diversity side of it is there. One of the biggest bison in the world, which is black dog, what you can find on the Oklahoma Historical Society. I have a picture blown up. I'm putting it in my classroom. It's one of the biggest bison ever recorded. Guess where he was? Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it says 2,800 pounds. That's a massive animal. Yeah, and so you don't think about that. They're just down the road. Yeah. And so, like you said, underrated. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. And so that's where the YouTube side of underrated. I think about that all the time. So sorry, I get drifted off.
Dude, this is awesome. Like this whole thing has been amazing, and I'm glad we finally got to do this. So people can go to crosstimbersbison.com, find everything they need to there at crosstimbersbison on Instagram. Same with Facebook, and then I need to connect you with an artist friend of mine who's kind of big in the bison painting world as well, because I think you guys had hit it off.
I love that.
I'll do that once we stop recording. But appreciate you coming down, mate. This is awesome. Thank you so much for the gifts. Thank you, Marissa, for everything. The hats I will wear. I love hats, so I will wear every single one of them.
Yeah.
The jerky isn't going to last long. That's going to be gone by the time I get in the car. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming down. It's awesome. We need to do this again in a couple of years just to check in.
Yes.
I look forward to doing that. And you have, by the time this goes out, you will have new beef sticks.
Yes, bison.
Bison sticks, sorry.
Bison.
See, look at that. That's just like force of habit. You will have new bison sticks.
It is a habit. It's okay.
Bison sticks in the on the online store. And for people listening, if you haven't tried it, go try it. Right?
Yeah.
And don't cook it too long.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's right. Yeah.
Do you have any YouTube videos of how to cook it?
No. Okay, so here's
the next video.
Here's what here's what I was going to add.
Yeah,
for you and for others is we're renovating our barn. There was a 60 by 80 barn that existed there when we bought this property, the Ponderosa, and we've been renovating it and we're getting really close. So what we're trying to do is make a place where we can have people come and visit and see the animals. You can see Big Joe. You can see some of those original animals. I don't know what we're doing, how we're doing it, but that was my vision. And so my wife and I are working towards that.
Serving a meal, maybe?
Maybe, yes. Yeah, and filming, showing people how to, and I'm the cook of our household, but that doesn't mean I'm a perfect bison cook,
right. You know how to cook it your way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but we definitely want to show that, and we want to, the people out there that ask me and I have to turn them down, there's a liability when you pull in that ranch and stuff, but, we're going to have it available to them eventually where they can come to the Ponderosa, Cross Timbers Bison Ranch, and see some of the bison and experience it.
I will come out and look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. For people listening, thank you so much, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln.
This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.